So today topic is serialization, cloning, reflection, and then how to get object of class dot for name, because people can ask you what is class dot for name, which is being used in JDBC. While making a connection to JDBC, class dot for name is used. So I'll explain you what is class dot for name, and if someone asks you how many ways you can create an object in Java, you can say we can create using new operator, using serialization in Java, using cloning, and then using reflection. So there are 4 ways to create object in Java. So let's start with serialization. So serialization is the process of writing the state of an object into a byte stream. Okay. So if you want to persist your object, you can use serialization. There are various advantage of using the serialization, or I can say why we use serialization. The reason is, if you want to transfer object over a network, okay, if you want to persist the objects, you can use serialization. So if you see any messaging technologies like JMS, JPA, RMI, or our ORM tool like Hibernate, all are using serialization internally. Okay, so the reverse of serialization is known as deserialization. So simply, if you say serialization is the process of writing the object into a byte stream, and we use serialization to transfer object over a network, and if you want to persist the object, we use serialization. So you should know where this serialization is being used. Any messaging techniques, because in messaging tricks, how there would be a client server architecture, and I am sending a message to a server, right? So the message is transferred in the form of by using serialization technique in Java. Okay. So, and the reverse of serialization is known as deserialization. As I said, what is the advantage of Java? It is used to transfer the object into over the network. Okay. So how we achieve serialization in Java? So there is a serializable interface which you have to implement to make your class serializable. Okay, as simple as that. So there is a serializable interface which you have to implement to make your class as a serialized. Okay. Now this interface is known as marker interface. So you should remember that in Java there are a couple of marker interface which are out of these, one is serializable. So what is marker interface now? A marker interface, you know what is interface? So interface can contain a data and the abstract methods, right? But marker interface contains nothing. It's just a definition. If you say interface my marker, that's all. It has nothing. So marker interface is an interface with no body. It is an empty interface, is known as marker interface. Okay. So why do we have marker interface? What is the purpose of having the marker interface is the question now, right? So the answer is, it is just to tell compiler that treat this class as a serializable class. So treat this class as a class which can perform extra function like serialization. So it is just a marker which is giving indication to the JDK JVM to tell that, oh, this is the class which is going to be serialized. As simple as that. So any question on this? Because people will ask you what is marker interface. So you should be able to understand that marker interface is an interface which is empty, which has nothing in it, and we can use my marker interface just to indicate JVM that treat this class as a serializable class. Okay. Any question on this? And just for your reference, our string class and all wrapper classes implement serializable. So those are all serialized by default. Any question? So now, how do we achieve serialization in Java? So as I told, first step would be you should implement serializable interface. Okay, and okay, you should implement a serializable interface, and there are some classes which you should remember, which has different methods, which I will show you in the example now. Okay. Yeah, Digdarshan, I'll explain the serialization now. So what is serialization? Serialization is a process of writing the object into a byte stream. So why we convert this object into a byte stream is because we want to transfer an object over a network. So you know the network communication always takes place in bits and bytes, right? So that's why serialization is a process of converting your object into a byte stream, and it is used to transfer object over a network. So the various advantage of using serialization is if you want to persist your object, you can use serialization. If you want to transfer an object over a network, you can use serialization. And where the serialization is used, it is used in Hibernate, your ORM technologies. It is used in when you want to communicate over a network actually, right? You use any messaging techniques. All techniques are used are build upon that serialization actually. So they internally use serialization. So the reverse of serialization is known as deserialization. Okay. So you got it? Any question on this? Digdarshan? Anyone? Okay. So shall we move on? So how you achieve serialization in Java? You just have to implement a serializable interface. But serializable interface is a special type of interface with the no body, which is known as marker interface. Okay. So marker interface is an interface without any data or abstract methods. If you compare the marker interface with the normal interface, the difference is normal interface contains data, which is by default public static final, and abstract methods, which are by default abstract methods, right? And this marker interface contains nothing. It is just an empty body actually. Okay. So why we use marker interface? It is just to, as the name suggests, right? It is just to tell your JVM that treat this class as a special class, and this class is going to perform a function which is known as serialization. Okay. Any question up to here before we move to example? So you understand the serializable concept, why we use serialization, what is marker interface. So these are the interview questions. Okay, so let's move with an example now. So how do we achieve serialization? So let's suppose if you see, so I have a class which is known as student class. Let me remove this. Let me remove this. So this is my class student. Okay, now how can I make this class as a serializable class? By implementing serializable, which is in package java.io. If you see, java.io.serializable interface is in which package? Java.io. Okay, now I can have some properties int age and string name, and I can create a constructor just to initialize those values. So what is constructor? It should have same name as your class name. So I'll say int age comma string name. So in this I will use this dot age equal to age, just to this is used to differentiate your formal parameter with the instance variable. Similarly, I'll use this dot name equal to name. So I have this class now ready with me. Now I have to write a main method. I'll say I'll write the, because I want to serialize this class itself, right? So this should be a separate class. Now what I'll do, I'll write another class. In this class I will say I have main method here. Now I'll create an object of student class. I'll pass a roll number say 1 and then I'll pass a name say Tarun. Okay. Let's remove this. I'll show you the concept of having this also. Now you must remember that where you want to write the stream now where you want to persist the data or how you want to communicate that how you want to persist the class. So I am going with the file. So what file I use file output stream equal to new of file output stream, and then I'll give some file name which I created at my desktop, f.text. Okay, f.text. So and now you should remember that serialization we have two classes, object output stream and object input stream. So object output stream is used to write your object to a file, okay, and object input stream is so basically if I talk in a simple terms, object output stream is used to serialize your object and object input stream is used to deserialize your object. I'll show you how. So object output stream O equal to new of object output stream, and I will pass a file name in that. So there is a method called o dot write object. So you just write a object, it will serialize your object, which is nothing but what student. In student what we have 1 and Tarun, roll number as 1, if you see here, sorry, age as 1 and name as Tarun. Okay, now if you see, if you remember, I told you what is checked exception and unchecked exceptions. If you remember, I told you the compiler force checked exception are those exceptions which are checked at compile time, and if you are playing with the files, JDK forces you to throw IO exception or cache those exception, right? You remember? You guys remember? So if you see this warning, so it says add throws or surround with key with try catch. So I'll say throw. Now see the file output, that warning is gone. If you see here also, it will say throw. So in basically these two falls under IO exception. So I am throwing the exception. I am telling that this method can throw an IO exception, which means file not found exception or object not found exception. Okay. Any confusion on this program? If you run this and I'll say sys out, I'll say success. Serialization fully done. So if you see, I'll run it as Java application. Serialization successfully done. If you see now that file f.text, this is some byte form. That's why it's not readable form, right? So it converts your object to a byte stream, which is now persisted. Understood? Any question on this, guys? Sorry. Okay, so now you see this is known as serialization. So you should remember how you do serialization. You can use class object output stream, which writes your primitive data types or Java objects to a output stream. Okay, and there is a method in that object outputs class which is known as write object. Okay, so as the name suggests, we have to write our object into a file. So you should use write object. This mechanism is known as serialization. Okay, any question, guys?
So I have a question.
Yeah.
So we are making this serialization to make sure it's a binary file, so that we can transfer the data. So what's the difference if we copy the file in the thumb drive and or like email the file instead of making serialization?
See, these concepts internally use serialization because as a user, outside user, you won't get what internally happens. That is known as abstraction, right? So that's why the abstraction comes into picture. As a user, as an end user, I am not aware of what is going on internally. This is known as abstraction to hide the implementation details from the user. You just know there is something happening, your file is getting copied, but internally you don't know how the functionality works, right? Until and unless you go to the functionality and check what is the logic written in that functionality, right? You're getting my point, right? So those concepts internally uses serialization. Whoever, if you talk about transferring the files using FileZilla over a network, th- that FileZilla internally uses the concept of FTP, and there are other protocols, right? But still they use if they are built on Java, they use serialization. As I told you, it is used in Hibernate, right? To persist your object. If you have some knowledge on Hibernate, so it Hibernate provides a very good caching techniques, which means it has some persistent, it already persists the object somewhere in the RAM memory, right? That's why it's able to perform the caching techniques. So those are the things which are happening internally, but we are not aware of what is happening. So that's why I'm telling you the concept of serialization, so you can compare serialization with the real-time example and see where the serialization actually is being used. Okay, answer your question. Rajesh, it was Rajesh?
Yeah, yes, I got the answer.
Okay. So understand what is serialization, how do we do serialization, what is marker interface. Again, because these concepts, why I'm stressing out, if you answer this question, you will have a great impression on interviewer, because people don't know about these things. And in if you see that other tutorials, if your friends attended other tuitions or something, they might have skipped these topics actually. So you should know what is serialization, what is marker interface, what how to achieve serialization. Okay, and there is another interview question which is being asked in this. If I have inheritance concept, okay, if I have a class A and I don't make that class serializable, let me go to the PPT which will help you to understand. If a class, okay, has a relation, no, let me go to, okay, so let's suppose I have has a relation, means aggregation. You understand what is aggregation in Java? So aggregation is, like, if you are if you consider a situation, I have a library, I have a books, right? So my library is nothing without the book, right? So it means library has a relationship with a book. Similarly, if you see, student is having an address. If I don't have student, address cannot exist independently, right? So this is known as aggregation in Java. So it explains aggregation also. It can be asked what is aggregation. So aggregation is something which cannot occurs independently. So which is kind of has a relation. Example. So I am a person. I have some address. So address depends upon a person, right? So if person is not there, address cannot exist independently. So it is known as aggregation. So let's suppose I have a class which is address and I don't define that class as a serializable. Okay. Now I have a class which is student and I implement serializable there, and I included that address class in my student class, which means I have a reference of address class in my student class, which is not serializable. Okay, so in this case we will get an exception which says not serializable exception, because as the rule says, serialization rule says, the class, if you have a reference class in the in any of your classes, it should be serialized. If not, it will throw an exception called as not serializable exception. Cleared your concept about this has a thing? Any question on this? Because this can be asked. People will ask you, I have a class ABC which is not serialized. I have another class where I implemented serialization, and I have a reference of ABC in class XYZ. So what will is it is will my program compile correctly or not? So you should be able to tell that no, because our class ABC is not serialized, it will throw an exception, says that not serializable exception. Any question, guys? Any question, guys? Anything? Any confusion? Any questions?
So serializable is used only for the data or saving the data, or it can be used for saving the whole class or the methods and the variables.
See, as I told, it is used to persist your object. So if you understand what is object, what is object? Object is nothing but a instance of a class which contains both data and member methods, right? So it is used to persist the entire object. So object internally has object methods and variables, right? So it stores both. It persists both. It persists the entire object. As a definition of this, if I show you this, it is used to transfer object over a network. It is used to persist the objects. It doesn't say it is used to persist the data members. It is used to persist the data objects, member functions. It says it is used to persist the objects, which means it is used to persist both. Okay, guys, it answers your question. Any confusion, any doubt?
No, but can you show us example of like serializing the method as well? Earlier we were doing only the data like age and name.
We can do that. That's not an issue. If you, let's suppose in my class, right, if you have one method, public void display, you say system.out, I am in display method. Okay, so now this display method, object dot display method, you can call if you want. Let me go to a student class, void display. So now once you create an object, I don't want to call that object basically. So now my object has all the, if you see this my object has all these things now. So which is being used? So let me run this program. It will it will still says that serialization successfully done. Okay. So it means you can have anything in this. Shall we move on?
Okay.
Yeah. So another concept, as I told you, this, remember this thing, this can be asked definitely. If you say I know serialization, you should be able to understand this concept. And other thing is, if I have is a relation, inheritance. Okay, so let's suppose I have a class parent and I don't implement anything in this. I don't make my class parent as serializable, and I have another class which is child and which extends parent. okay, and which extends parent, okay, which is, let me make an example. I have a class parent, and parent is, I make my parent as a serializable, and I have a child class and I extend that parent. So does my child class also be a part of persistence serialization or not? This is an interview question which is being asked many times. So I have a, okay, shall I repeat? So if I say I have a class parent, I make my class serializable by implementing the serializable interface. I have another class which is child, and I extend that child's parent class in my child class. Does all the child members and methods will become serializable automatically or not? So your answer should be yes. Okay. So if you extend something which is serializable already, it will force the child class variables or methods to be serialized, okay, automatically. So understand this question. So there are two questions in this. There are many questions actually, but these are the scenarios which they will give once you answer what is serialization, what is marker interface. So they will give you all these scenarios, which I have here one quoted one and which I told you verbally. Any question guys on this? So let's move on to, so what if I have, like, let's suppose I have in my student class, I have like 10 variables. I have another string, some address, okay, string A, int B, int C. So let's suppose I have now how many? 1, 2. So now I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 variable. Out of these 6 variables, I don't want to make address to be serializable. Okay, so you understand, I don't want my address to get persist or to transfer our network. How you will achieve in Java? This is again an interview question. So people will ask you, I have a class, I have 10 variables, I just want 9 variables to be get serialized. How can you achieve it? The answer should be a transient variable, transient keyword. So you just make your variable as transient. It will make sure that int b will not take place, will not be a part of serialization. So always remember what is a keyword, transient keyword, which will help us to avoid the serialization for a particular variable. If you don't want to make two variable be a part of serialization, you can use this. Okay guys, so understood what is transient variable in Java, transient keyword. Okay, any question on serialization? Any of you have, I forget actually, any one of you have attended any interview, Java interviews till date? No. Okay. 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 Fine. So remember these things actually. So this is a due interview question. If someone asks you serialization, this is a due interview question. 100% they will ask. If let's suppose I have a class of 10 variables, 20 variables, I don't want to make one variable as a to take. I want my 19 variables to take part as in a serialization, but one variable I don't want. How you will achieve it? So the straight away answer would be transient. Okay. So in serialization, there is another concept known as externalization. So which is like, if you want to customize your serialization, you can do it, which is not that much important. And but you should know what is externalization. Okay, so externalization is same as serialization. Oh, sorry, I missed a concept which is known as deserialization. So this is how we do serialization. Now if I comment this, so how you will do deserialization? Serialization is converting an object into a byte stream. Deserialization, because see, I am transferring something over a network, right? So I convert a file into a byte stream, and in my client A and client B received that file, but a person who received this file won't understand byte code, right? So we have to convert again into an object, so that which would be like readable for a user. So which is known as deserialization. You convert your byte stream into an object again, which is known as deserialization. So you use, what you are doing, you are reading a file, so there is a method which is known as read object. Absolutely, Vivek. So you can use file input stream, f equal to new, which file you want to read. One is oh, sorry, what I am doing, remove this. Okay, so let me, this file we have to give which file you want to read. So now if you, there is another class similar to object output class, we have object input class, input stream class. I equal to new of object input stream. I have to pass f, then there is a method called f dot read object. Simple. Sorry, o dot read object. Okay, and there is a method which I want to read. This is the object which I want to read. Okay, so read object is a method which is being used to deserialize. Now the question is how it creates a new object, right? So if you remember, I told you deserialization is being used. Why it is throwing an error exception once again? Okay, so how serialization is used to create a new object. Okay, so people will ask you how many ways you can create object in Java. You can say new operator, that is very common. Then serialization, how serialization deserialization is used to create object. The object which you are reading here, you can, it's actually internally how it works. Serialization, it creates a new object. Okay, so that's why I'm storing an object in an object class, object return type. So this is a new object which serialization deserialization creates. So you just as simple as that, if you tell him, that interviewer, that serialization is used to create an object, that's all. Okay, so remember, serialization, new operator. Now any question on serialization, how we achieve serialization, how we achieve deserialization, what is marker interface, what is transient keyword? Any question? Silence means no. Let's move on then. So we have another concept in Java, which is cloning. Very important concept, very powerful concept. Cloning, as the name suggests, it is just a cloning of an object which is used to create a copy of your object, right? You have an object, let's suppose student object. I want to clone that object and play with that object. How I'll do that? Java provides a mechanism known as cloning to just clone an object, and you just keep a backup of a project, and if you want to do something, modify something, you play around with the your copied or cloned object. Okay, so again, how you achieve cloning in Java? You have to implement a clonable interface to make your class cloning. So any question on this cloning? So there are two interfaces you should always remember: serializable, which is used to achieve serialization in Java, and if you want to achieve cloning, you can use clonable interface. Okay, so cloning, you understand what is cloning? So if you say where cloning is being used, cloning is being used everywhere within the tools. If you use Hibernate, you use ID, we are using ID, everything we understand, everywhere we are using cloning actually. So cloning concept is very powerful, and sometimes it's not that much fame like re- frequently asked question, but people ask this, but you should understand the concept of cloning. So cloning is nothing but a way to create exact copy of an object. So how you achieve cloning in Java? By implementing the clonable interface. Okay, so there are two types of cloning. One is shallow cloning, another is deep cloning in Java. So now let me go back here. Okay, so shallow cloning is cloning which is used to clone an object. Okay, which is copying the reference pointer to the object, which means new object is pointing to the same memory reference of an old object. So let's suppose I have an object, and in that I have another objects, object 1 and object 2, and if I go and clone this, shallow cloning we won't create an entire object. It will just point, it will just make the pointers, and it refers to the old object 1 and object. So my old object was this one object 1 object 2. After cloning, what happened? New cloned object creates, and it points to object 1 and object 2. Okay. So shallow cloning, you should remember, this is an interview question. If someone tells you, in my class I have primitive data types, like let me show you. In student I have something, this int age, int b, and then I have address. In this address is another class, right? So I have another address class. Let me create this class, create class address, finish. So now if you see, I have a student class which I have two variable primitive data types or objects, and then I have a reference object. Actually it means student contains two variables and an object, right? So if I do a shallow cloning of this student, what will happen? It will create a new copy of age and name, but it will still points to the same address which the student has. Understand the concept?
Can you repeat that again, please?
Yeah, see, to make it simple, you understand what is student? I have a class student, and then I have a class address. So it means address, student contains address class, it means it contains another object, right? You understand this concept? If I say class contains another object, what does it mean?
Yes.
You understand that concept, right? So if you see,
Yes.
student has two variables and a class itself, which means it has an object itself, address object, right? So now if I go and clone it, if you see, my original class has age, okay, it has name, and it has again address, right? So now if I clone this student object by using clone method and by shallow cloning, it will say student 1, or maybe cloned, what it will do, it will create a new copy of age, new copy of name, but it will still refer to the same. If I say, if I do like this, it will stay still, this will point to this address object. So it means for objects which are which are present in the class, it won't create a new object itself. So it just change the reference. So as the statement says, shallow cloning is a copying the reference pointer to the object, which means new object is pointing to the same memory location of the old object. In this case, now what will happen in this case? Now you understand? Tell me if you don't. I can make a diagram and show you how can, like, show you the concept if you still not understand. Understand, guys? Speak up. If you have confusion, please let me. I don't have any issues of explaining it again. So as I told, shallow cloning only works for primitive data types. Okay, so this is the interview question, pet interview question. People will ask you what is shallow cloning. You should be able to explain this, and giving no chance to the interviewer that he can ask you a cross question, right? So if he tells you explain shallow cloning, you should tell that shallow cloning is used to create.
So,
Yeah, go ahead.
so if you change something in the address object, you don't have access to the old memory if you do shallow cloning?
When we do shallow cloning, we have that, but see that we just pointing to that address, right? So if you change it, yes, it overrides the, it affects the original of original object also. I'll show you that example. I have that example.
Okay. Okay.
Okay, so this is the example. If so, I was telling you what is shallow cloning, and you should be able to tell that it creates a new copy of primitive data types or object, but it won't it keep referring to the old objects actually. So reference is only change. So if you imagine now what happens actually here, what is the advantage of shallow cloning? Can anyone tell me?
Low memory usage?
Exactly. So what happened in this case? We didn't create a new address object, right? So it is not like we create an entire object, and if I create a new object, it creates it allocates some memory also, right? So we keep referring to the old address object, which means we save the memory in this case. So this is the answer you should give. Now if you see, I have an example, shallow cloning. So this is a big example, that's why I wrote, I don't want to write it right away, it takes like 15 minutes. So I have a class car. In this class, I have a car name. I have setter and getter method. So please stop me in between if you are not understanding. I have a class car. I have constructor in this car. I have one variable which is car name. And if you are worried about this, let's change it to this, and I'll say this dot car name. Okay. So what happened? I have a car name. I have a getter and setter. For this, I have two methods, get and set. And then if you, I have a class person which implements, I told you if you want to make your class clonable, or to follow that cloning concept, you should implement a clonable interface, right? So my class person implements clonable interface. Now it contains an object of car. If you say private car object, and I have a name variable which is name of a person. So now my person class has two things. One is car object and another is my name of the person. Okay. So similarly for the name, I have get name, set name, and then constructor. So now if I read this, yeah. So now if you see, now to make a class clonable, we implement a excuse me, sorry guys. So let's continue. So what we have to do in person class, there is a method in object. So you should remember these steps. First, to make a class clonable, you should implement a clonable interface. Okay. And then second step is you should override a clone method which is available in object class. So as I told you, right, object class internally, which is a super class in Java, has many methods like hash code equals. Now I showed you clone also. So always remember this. This is an interview question. If someone asks you, can you tell me what do you know about the object class? So you should tell that it is a superclass which contains various method like equals, hash code, clone, which we studied, right? There are others also like wait, not sleep, notify. There are different methods which are in object. So we override. That's why I just wrote @override. Now how you make the cloning shallow copy? By using a clone method, dot clone method. So I have that in catch method. This just, you can ignore this and just remember that's how can you achieve the cloning by using dot clone method. Okay. So now let's go to a main class. Main method, I have a public static void main. I created a person object and I said person A and my car is Civic. Now if I print this, my original person name is this and car name is this. Now I created a shallow copy of a person which is person2 person.clone. This is how you create a shallow copy. Okay. So now after creating a shallow copy, what is the output I am getting? I just printed. Now your question, Vivek, your question. If I change the primitive data type, what will happen? I change the name to person B, whereas my person object has person A. Now I change the name to set is used to modify or initialize your variables, right? So set, and I change the name and I change the object also. Now it is occurred. Instead of Civic, I change the name to occurred. So changes after clone after change. You will see all these things. Now let me run this. See. So what is the output? So what I passed original person A Civic, clone before change A Civic, clone after change B occurred. Now if you see, after clone is modified, person A occurred. Understood? Any question, guys? So it means, if you see the output, so if you read this, what does it mean? Only the primitive data types will change, the objects remains the same. So as the explanation I gave you, it only creates a new objects for primitive data types, but objects will, it still keeps pointing on to the objects. So the objects are not changing, but we changed here, right? So if see here, what we did, person2 dot get name and set the name to occurred, and we change the name of person also to person B, but in the output we are getting this C original after the cloning modify, which is person A and occurred. Okay. So original object is not affected by changing the object, but it is affected if you change the primitive data types. You want for, let me do that. I pinged you. Any question, guys? Please speak up. Anything you want me to explain again, I can explain it. But you should remember what is shallow cloning. Shallow cloning only works for primitive data types. It won't affect your objects. As the example I showed you, in this case we have car object and a person class. I make my person class as a clonable class, and then I include car and the person name variable. Now what I did, I created an object person So my original object is this without name, person A and civic. Now what I did, I create a clone copy of person 2, and I set my name to person B and name and this car name as Eckerd, and I printed this after the change. Okay, so but if you see the output, what happened is original object was this person A civic. The original object after cloning remains person A Eckerd, which means it affects the primitive data type, which is your car name, but not the name. You got my you got the point, right? So the simple concept here is it only affects the primitive data types, as I showed here. In this case, it just creates the object and start pointing to the old object, not to the new object. Okay, so let's move on to, if you don't have any question, we can move on to deep cloning. So deep cloning is opposite to shallow cloning. So deep cloning itself it creates a new object itself. So whether primitive data type, contained object, anything, you can achieve deep cloning is you will get a new object every time you clone the object. Okay, so it won't have specification like shallow cloning, which only works for primitive data types. It can work for all. So it basically, like, if you see in this my original object contains object 1, object 2. After cloning, my object becomes object and this becomes object 1. So I have two separate object in this case. So any question on shallow cloning, deep cloning, what is cloning, how to make your class clonable? Any question, guys? If not, then we'll move to another concept which is known as Java reflection actually. Why I took this topic, because in this topic there is one interview question and which is like being used in JDBC connection. So I want you to understand that before you move to JDBC connection and all, which is known as class.forName. So I will explain you what is class.forName and why we use that. So in simple word, a reflection is nothing but changing the runtime or changing or modifying the runtime behavior of your class. Okay, so simply you can say you can change the behavior of a class at runtime, which is known as reflection. Any question? So this is a powerful concept which is being used in our debugger tool, testing tools, IDE like Eclipse. You are using Eclipse, but you are not aware what how the Eclipse is built, right? So the majority of Eclipse is built using reflection API. So which is again an abstraction for you. You can give all number of examples for abstraction, right? So you don't know what's going on internally in Eclipse, but you are writing something, you are getting the auto suggestion, you just do dot, you will get all the methods to a particular class. How this is happening? This is happening internally, which is known as abstraction, and reflection is playing a great part in that. Okay, any question? Guys, I am audible, my screen is visible. Is everything going above from your head? Okay, so shall I continue? You don't have any question or any confusion? Because see, I don't you have any doubts you can clear right away, because then it will become a messy for you to understand the things. These are the topics which are important and can be asked. Okay, so let's move on to another thing is, so what is class.forName? This is the forName. This is really important questions, and if you are a fresher, they will ask you this question 110%. What is class dot for name? Because they will ask you the JDBC connectivity, and if you follow the traditional JDBC connectivity, we used class dot for name by writing ourselves, but now ORM techniques internally they used, but we are not using. They are doing, like, our frameworks are doing our, they do our for work. They make our work very easily. That's why we don't write it using the frameworks. But if you want to learn how the JDBC connection happens in the traditional way, then we used to write, when I started my career, we used to write class dot for name. Okay, so to make a JDBC connection. So what class dot for name do? It is used to load the class dynamically. It returns a class. It should be used if you know the fully qualified name of the class. This cannot be used with the primitive data type. So if you tell these things, you are on. You will be like, he will understand that you understand the concept of class dot for name. So class dot for name is used to load class dynamically. It returns the instance of class. I'll show you how it returns the instance of class. Okay. If you know the fully qualified name, you understand what is qualified name. Fully qualified name means in Java. So if fully qualified name is, if my class is lying in some C and D folder, I should know the exact path and the name of the file. Then only I can use class.forName. Okay, I cannot use any regex, any like in operation and nothing. I can use this class.forName if I know the qualified name, fully qualified name. Okay, so if you see, so I have a sample. So how you achieve this? What is the use of class.forName? Let's suppose I have a class sample. Now what I did, I created a class which is class forName, and then in that main method, now what I did, as I told you, right, class dot, so now in this, if I say class dot forName, so as I said, class dot forName always returns the instance of class, right? So I should be catching that whatever it returns to a variable. So I'll say class c equal to c, this way. So now how can I get the name of the class? I can say c dot, if you see, if you just remove this and see c dot, how many methods I have get name, I have new instance, I have class loader, I have name, I have all those stuff, right? So there are all hell number of methods which are in there in C. So you just say g dot get name. So it will happen run as Java application. So what I got sample, which is the name of my class, sample. Say now I got the name of the class. I got the name of the class. I can create an object and I can play with it, right? So this is happening in, this is known as reflection, right? Once you get the class name, you can create object, and then you can play with this object. This is known as changing the behavior at a runtime, which is known as reflection. So this statement, if you have ever got the chance to see the JDBC connection, you might have seen this statement everywhere. Traditional JDBC connection. If you see, let's go there. JDBC connection. Something wrong. So if you see class dot forName. So what it do here is we have a JDBC driver, MySQL JDBC driver. So we kept somewhere in this. Now what it did do, it load this class, driver class here dynamically, which is being used now to make the connections actually. I'll explain this when we do a session on how JDBC connectivity works in Java. But this is being used extensively, and you should aware of this what class.forName do. So what does class.forName do? It loads the class dynamically. We can use it when we know the name of the class. If we know the fully qualified name, and it always returns the instance of a class. Okay, any question on this, guys? Any confusion? Anything you want to discuss about these topics? Our yesterday topic, which is very important, which was very important, like hash map, hash set, list, collections. And hope everyone got this recording session video which I shared yesterday. Anyone who is still missing? So tomorrow we will start with threads concept, multi-threading concept, and then it won't take much time because I don't want to see the multi-threading is a concept which is like which even experienced people cannot understand. But I'll I'll give you like the methods which are used in multi-threading and the interviews question which can be asked in multi-threading. If you say I know multi-threading, right? So I will give you the brief of those and the concepts of what are the different methods used and what are the questions which can be asked. So I'll make sure that you understand this, and you should be able to answer those questions from multi-threading. And it is multi-threading is a wide concept which the experienced people are not will not understand. So if you people are just freshers, you people will get confused, but I will give you all those concepts which can be asked to a freshers about that multi-threading. And then we will move to synchronization 2 days, and then we will start some JSPs and servlets concept, and then we can move to JDBC connection, and then I can have some 2-3 days for Spring also. Does it make sense? Or anything else you want to suggest, you want to add on anything? We will try to wrap it up as soon as possible, but I want you to people, like, it's not about wrapping up faster. I want you people to understand, if you go through the previous classes, if you have any questions, and then we can have one day for interviews question. And if you have googled it or your friends reference, you are getting the what are the interviews questions being asked in interviews. We can discuss those, and the list which I can share with you. And if you have any doubt how to give an explanation, and if they ask how to avoid the cross questions, right? So that's the way I give interview actually. So I make sure that people won't ask a cross question. So I make sure that whatever I am answering, it should be like it should be from A to Z. It should not lying between A to B, and then people will start asking the cross questions, right? In case of hash map, there is a the people who answer this question, 100% guarantees there would be a cross question. But you should answer the hash map as I told you, starting from a get method to a put method, covering that scenario of multiple entries having the same hash code, multiple keys having the same hash code. The interviewer will be impressed. So the last day we'll see how soon we can wrap up. But I want to have one day for that interviews question.
Okay.
Anything else? Any suggestions? Anything you want? Anything, guys? So what about the programs which I shared yesterday? Searching and sorting. You people got the chance to write those programs, or if you don't got chance to write, even to look it into a Google, because you will find lot of programs like tutorials of having the sorting and searching algorithms. If you still won't understand, please do let me know. We can go through here. Yes, we can. We'll create a login application or registration form application using Spring and Java. Then we can, after completing the Spring, right? So I'll show you the web application, simple web application, and I'll make sure that you understand. So it's not about how you create, how you code. It's about what you understand by your web application. What is MVC architecture? If you have a clarity on this, how the request comes, how it is being handled, right? So you know when you type in Google in your browser, what happens at the back end, right? So this is now, so that those things I would love to teach you, and I would love to explain, and I would love to share my experience, because you should understand. Because see, the coding, you can start coding, write a HTML page, on click on submit, you will redirect to some other page. So but backend, what is happening, you should know, right? So what is servlets, what are web.xml, what is happening, from where this architecture of frameworks is taking the request, right? So I'll explain those things also. So it would be maximum 10 to 12 days. We should be able to wrap it up. If you attended the session on Saturday and Sunday also, it would be quick. Okay. Any question? Other questions? Any queries? Yeah. When I start inject, see, Spring. My plan is, there are different modules in Spring which are core module, AOP. We have JDBC template. We have so on dash blah blah blah, and then finally we have MVC, right? So my plan is to give you core module which includes dependency injection, types of dependency injection. I'll cover the question which is being asked, and if you say I am aware of Spring framework, people will ask you just those questions. What is dependency injection? How you achieve dependency injection? By using setter and constructor. Which method is better? Okay. And then after explaining the core concept, core module of Spring, we can move on to our MVC, which is being used to create the web application. So I'll explain you core module and your MVC. But if you are interested, you people are interested, we can have a different training for Spring, entire Spring, and Hibernate, which is really happening in the market right now, because the ORM which is being used by 98% of industry is being Hibernate. And like we can combine a session and take another class which is a combination of Hibernate, Spring, and REST framework, because these three are which are happening in market, right? So if you studied or you explored the market, you should be aware of this REST framework, REST web services, your Spring framework, and Hibernate as an ORM is hot topic in market, right? Is it true, or I'm talking about Indian market. I'm not sure about what's happening in US, but that is for sure. If Indian markets are using that, we have a lot of projects which are happening in US, right? So they will be using REST framework, Spring, and this Hibernate. So you guys got chance to study those things. What are the technologies you want to learn? Okay, then you should start exploring with your friends who are working in MNCs. What are the hot thing happenings? Or you can go to some Naukri's portal and see which technology has more openings, right? This is how job hunting takes place. So if you do something, if you start investing your time in that, you will get the fruit of it very soon. But you should be aware of that. These are the, if you don't have goal in mind, I want to become a web developer and I should learn these technologies. I I should not be limited to Java. I should learn front end also. So those kind of things you should, if you are starting, you should always keep in mind. And if you become a full stack developer, you are a cream in the market. Anyone can hire you at any time. Okay. Any question, guys? Start doing these things. Just analyze the market, talk to your friends. What are the things which are happening? Because anyways, you started learning Java, right? So Java won't help you alone. Java won't help you. So you should know the frameworks. You should know the front end also. Angular JS very hot in market. Bootstrap. So if someone is interested, we have a session which is going on, like UI for UI JS HTML5. You can attend that, but not now. Maybe later on. Any question, guys? Anything except this training? Anything you want to discuss about job profiles, about market? Anything? Do let me know. So if not, we can drop for the day. Last few minutes. Have any question or doubt or anything you want to discuss with me? No. Okay. So let's. Thank you. Goodbye. Bye bye.